To call to order the Board of Adjustments and Appeals for Monday, February 2nd, 2026. Roll call.
Chairperson Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Jump,
Here.
Commissioner Lubin,
Here.
Commissioner Lubavitch,
Here.
Commissioner Mikich. Here.
Let the record also show that ex officio Pat Green and Tina Glad are in attendance, as well as our City Community Development Director, Betsy Olivanti. Next, approval of the agenda. Acceptance of the agenda for recording purposes, note additions, deletions, or changes, if any.
I can make a motion to approve.
The motion's been made and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Let the record also show that City Administrator Greg Prusinski just walked in also. Next, approval of the minutes. Approval of the Board of Adjustments and Appeal minutes for October 20th, 2025. No corrections, additions, or deletions, if any. I'll move the approval of the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion been made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, reorganization of the Hibbing Board of Adjustments and Appeals. We have nominations and elections of officers for 2026. Currently, we have the incumbent chair, Gordon Smith, and the acting chair is vacant. So at this point, I'll open up the nominations for chairperson.
Chair, I'll nominate Gordon Smith for chair.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close the nominations for chairperson, and we'll have a motion for a unanimous ballot for chairperson.
Chair, I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now we got to do the acting chair. So I'll open up the nominations for acting chairperson. Are there any nominations for acting chair? You interested?
I'll make a motion for Corey to be acting chair.
Okay, do you accept, Corey?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close the nominations for acting chair. And we'll make a motion for a unanimous ballot for Corey as the acting chair. I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is new business, which we don't have anything. Open discussion, nothing for the Board of Adjustments and Appeals tonight, so, okay, I'll move for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second.
Been motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned on the Hibbing Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Moving on, we'll call to order the Hibbing Planning Commission meeting for Monday, February 2nd at 2026. Roll call.
Chairperson Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Jump,
Here.
Commissioner Lubin,
Here.
Commissioner Lubavitch,
Here.
Commissioner Mikich.
Here.
Let the record also show that ex officio Pat Green and Tina Glad are in attendance, as well as our city administrator, Greg Prusinski, and our community development director, Betsy Olivanti. Next up, approval of agenda. Acceptance of the agenda for recording purposes. No additions, deletions, or changes, if any. I'll move the agenda.
Will second the motion.
Motion's been made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, approval of the minutes. Approval of the Planning Commission minutes for December 1st, 2025. No corrections, additions, or deletions, if any.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next up is reorganization of the Hibbing Planning Commission. It's nomination for election of officers for 2026. Currently, the incumbent chair is Gordon Smith and acting chair is vacant. We also have the zoning amendment committee, of which Gordon Smith, Corey Lubavitch are on that. And we have the Heritage Preservation Commission, which is currently vacant. So at this time, we'll open up nominations for the chairperson.
Chair, I'll nominate Gordon Smith.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations for chairperson, and we'll do a motion for a unanimous ballot for chairperson.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been made, seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Election of acting chair. We'll open up the nominations at this time for acting chair. Are there any nominations for acting chair?
I'll make a motion for Corey.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close the election, the nominations for acting chair, and we'll have a motion for a unanimous ballot for acting chair, and I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, Corey.
Congrats, Corey.
Okay, next on the agenda is convene the public hearing scheduled for this time to consider an interim use permit request of Cabina Sand and Gravel LLC, 3938 19th Avenue East, Hibbing, Minnesota, to allow for the operation of a gravel pit in the O Open Space District and the Hibbing City Code of Ordinance on the subject properties, property ID 141-0050-02035 and 141-0050-02040, the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter and part of the southeast corner of the northwest quarter of Section 15, Township 57, Range 21, Hibbing. Staff report.
Staff report?
Yep.
The applicant is requesting an interim use permit for the operation of an existing gravel pit. The gravel pit is considered legal non-conforming at this time, since it was in operation before the city of Hibbing annexed this area years ago. The owner would like to make it conforming with the city of Hibbing zoning regulations for a gravel pit and allow for the recycling and crushing of concrete at this gravel pit. The gravel pit will consist of the removal of sand and excavation of the gravel from this pit. It It will also consist of a portable crushing plant to make different sizes of aggregate and crushing of concrete. These types of operations are needed for projects such as road projects and construction projects throughout the area. All the equipment used creates some noise, dust, and odors to manufacture this material. The objective is to keep these problems to a reasonable level for the neighborhood and still have this type of operation. The location of this gravel pit is really, or not really, near any residential neighborhood. The following are some suggested questions to be answered by the applicant to allow the Planning Commission to put conditions if needed and if granted. One would be reasonable hours of operation. Most of our gravel pits that we've had in the past were 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The other would be, what noises, odor, and dust control from, if any, from the portable plants will take place to reduce any complaints. Even though it's, not near any neighborhood, it is up on a high hill. There will, not, at this time, no asphalt plant. Usually that's when we get some odor complaints. So the applicant is in the audience, and I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. Can I have the applicant come to the podium and speak your name and address for the record, please?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jackie Cabina. My address is 3938 East 19th Avenue, Hibbing.
Thank you. You want to just give us a brief overview of what you intend to do here?
Sure. So, I'm here with my son, Drew Cabina. Together, we own and newly manage our sand and gravel pit out in Kerr. And we just want to go in the right direction with things, with our removals, common excavation removals, the storage of like asphalt, concrete for future use of crushing.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Chair, I'll ask a question. So is there anything that is, so you've been in existence, is there anything new that you're bringing in with this operation for conditional use?
Well, possibly a screening plant and possibly a crushing plant.
Okay,
It just depends on what jobs are bid that we get.
thank you.
As far as the staging of materials, I mean, it's just temporary, because we plan on crushing it and using it recycling. So the common excavation removals would be more of a permanent thing.
Okay, what are you looking like for, as Pat suggested here, on as far as conditions, as far as days of the week and hours of operation?
Well, Pat mentioned to have Sundays off, and I don't know if we can do that because we would wish to be able to work the weekends just in reasonable times. You know what I mean? We both work regular jobs and we do a lot on the weekends in our pit. So
So do you work many Sundays?
out there we
Out there?
would, yeah. That's we get a lot done on the weekends there. It doesn't seem to be a problem. People, it's kind of got a good buffer zone.
Yeah, you're secluded.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's not.
I
There's a
don't see
buffer
any
zone
problem
around
with
the whole
that.
pit.
They have
so-
been working Sundays, and we've never heard any complaint in our office.
Yep.
Just that there was, any type of noise or complaint.
Sure.
And you enter through from the backside of Kerr, correct? Isn't that where you?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
What about hours of operation?
So we would be interested in the 6 a.m. to 8 probably,
Okay.
or 6 to 9 even. I mean, if that would be possible. I guess it all depends on the daylight.
Okay.
Chair, I got another question. Is this year-round? Is there heavier seasonal use? I mean, is load restrictions affect anything?
You know, it all depends on the demand for sand. Like, we have been hauling to the Public Works building. We do work up there when road restrictions are on, just because we're trying to strip like certain materials and prepare for the season. So,
Thank you.
I have a question. You say you're adding the crusher now. Did you previously crush on the weekends?
so we probably wouldn't be crushing on the weekends. I'm just saying for like regular use, if somebody wanted a load of sand or two on a Sunday, you know. I'm not saying that we're gonna be running the crusher out there, you know, on the weekends. If we did get a crusher, it would be kind of a 2-week deal where we would probably, you know, crush during daylight hours as long as we could, because it would be on a rental, obviously. And so we'd want to crush as much as we could and to get our money's worth.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Chair, just a point of clarification, this is an interim use permit, not a conditional, right?
Correct, and I did talk to Drew Kavina on, he let me know that he felt 30, because we have to put a time on it, he felt 30 years. He knows it'll be around for 30 years.
There's enough stock in it.
If it's sold, or if the land's sold, then it doesn't go with the new owner, they would have to come back in for the interim use permit.
Just so the applicant is clear on that, because in
Yep.
their narratives, they listed CUP a couple places, but circled IUP.
Oh,
So the circling would have been me when I handed out the application to them. I would have circled that they were getting an IUP.
So all the more reason why we need to make that clear that it's an interim use.
yes, and I did to the applicant,
Okay.
and that they had to come up with a time span, and 30 years is what they came up.
Okay.
And then question to the applicant, do you have problems with the gravel freezing up in the winter months?
Yeah, I mean, like when, it only becomes an issue when we're digging it, if you're talking about the overhangs or the frost. Is that what you're getting at? It does freeze, yeah, there is moisture in it.
Would it be necessary to put a hot pad in there at some point?
I mean, to help us dig in the winter? Well, I mean, if we had a demand for it, you know, I think that would be possible, but,
Okay, so that might be a consideration further down the line.
mm-hmm.
All right.
Any other questions? Thank
Chair, I have a
you.
question,
Okay.
just for clarity's sake. So is the process to receive materials for recycling as well?
We're supplying them.
Okay, but you're not proposing to receive any materials for recycling or
No.
crushing? No.
Oh, yeah, coming into our pit, but then we would be supplying them to the customers.
Okay,
Does
so
that
the
make
question I have
sense?
is would that be during the normal operating hours as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
so in a lot of our residential demo, our basements go to a contractor that crushes the concrete, which is much cheaper per ton, per yard than hauling it somewhere else. And that would be the same thing that their company would do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak for or against this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at this time and move on to the findings of fact. Number one, the proposed building or use is specifically listed as a conditional interim use in the regulations applicable to the district in which it is located. And I would say yes, which is what they said, it is an interim use in that. Everybody agree?
Agreed.
Yes. Sounds good. Number 2, the proposed building or use at that particular location requested is necessary or desirable to provide convenience and will contribute to the general welfare of the neighborhood or the community. The response was supplying essential materials such as sand and gravel for roads, bridges, concrete prep, public works, jobs, and residential for the surrounding community. I would agree with that. They're actually, it's an existing pit. They're just going to expand operation a little bit there to include a couple other things, but other than that, it's, everybody agree?
Agreed.
Sounds good. Number 3, that the proposed building or use will not have a substantial or undue adverse effect upon adjacent properties, the character of the neighborhood, traffic conditions, utility facilities, and other matters affecting the public health, safety, and general welfare. The applicant's answer, we are working at making our land better in appearance and than it was before. We are doing this by keeping the area extremely organized, safe, and establishing berms, maintaining washouts, and most importantly, correct stormwater drainage. Which it sounds good. I mean, they're doing an existing gravel pit and they're actually taking a lot of steps to mitigate any problems, it looks like.
I'll agree.
Everybody's in agreement? Sounds good. Number 4, that the proposed building or use will be designed, arranged, and operated so as to permit development and use of neighboring property in accordance with the applicable district regulations. Our location should not hinder neighboring communities as we have, or at least gated road access with the DNR that we also maintain. I would agree with that. It's a pretty rural area, so it's really not a whole lot out there it can affect.
Yep.
Agreed.
Everybody's in agreement. So we're in agreement on all of them. So at this point, we'll look at doing a motion, and I'll make a motion that we approve this with the conditions. They can operate 7 days a week, that's fine. And then we'll do 6 a.m. to, they requested 9 p.m., which it's pretty rural, so that shouldn't be an issue. And we'll do that. So 7 days a week, 6 to 9 p.m. We have a second.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This goes to city council?
February 18th.
Okay. This will go before the city council on February 18th, so you'll want to be there too in case you have any questions for you on it. Okay, next up is.
Chair,
Yes.
we would want to go back to the Heritage Preservation Commission and the
Oh,
vacancy.
okay, yep, and the nominations, we got 2 there, we got that, and, amendment committee, we didn't do.
the what?
The 2 for the amendment committee,
Oh, yes. I mean, if you guys want to stay, we don't have to re-vote you on there, you can stay. But if you want to be off there, like, we don't have to vote you back on every year for the
amendment.
amendment committee, the zoning amendment, we don't have to.
I'm fine with that, you fine with it, Cory?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay, so
Okay.
we're good there. Is anybody interested in being on the Heritage Preservation Committee? It doesn't seem like it at this point. Don't seem like they've been meeting anyway, but
How long has it been vacant?
I
2
think that,
years? Couple years?
I think Dimitri was the last one on it, so probably 2 years now. What are your thoughts, Betsy?
Chair, if I may.
Sure.
We do have a project coming up, the 400 block redevelopment project. So anything that they do to build in our historic district, if it's not in keeping with, say, how the Android is constructed, with all of the historic materials, et cetera, that will need to come before the Historic Preservation Committee and then the Planning Commission, and then go to City Council and EDA for approval. So we really do need that person seated on that Heritage Preservation Commission, because they're gonna have to have the first look at how those buildings are constructed.
And if I don't know that the Heritage Preservation Commission is a full board now, but they're probably going to be looking at making it a full board for
Because
this
of that.
purpose, yeah.
Okay. Put me on there, I guess.
Okay.
And I'm assuming this was advertised to the public to
So-
like see if there was interest out there for someone taking that chair?
So there has to be one member from the Planning Commission.
Okay,
So
that's
there
what I'm
are,
missing.
there are
Got
members.
it.
What did we look at, Betsy? Well, that,
It was in between 5 and 7.
Yep.
So the old ordinance that Tina and I looked at said 7, with 1 being an architect. So if you saw something published recently, they were looking for an architect to sit on that commission.
Okay.
That open call did not get an architect application. It got a couple of general public applications, but they were not suitable for what was being requested. So, but the Planning Commission has a standing seat from one of your board to be
on the
appointed.
member.
Understood.
Yeah, on
Thanks.
the commission.
Do they have enough members on it to have a quorum now?
I believe they do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Candy and Kelly work on that, so I'm not sure, but I know that we needed somebody on there.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good. That takes care of that. So next is open discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yep.
All right, so City Administrator Przinski and myself have been working with a legal team from Kutak Rock on some energy work. And the Hibbing Public Utilities is contemplating adopting a new high-voltage transmission line routing through our city limits to do an interconnect into the MISO system for supplying power to the grid overall. They have been working with City Council for quite some time, but most recently, late last summer, to bring forward a resolution to sort of outline, a rough outline of a process that they would go through in the city to be public, transparent, and achieve the public hearings, et cetera, for that transmission line within our city limits. The Planning Commission has jurisdiction over this type of work, and so therefore, we're working with you all now to bring forward ordinance change. We have an ordinance that sets forth some very general processes, but in order to do this particular process well, we felt maybe a more specific ordinance around transmission corridors in the city would be appropriate. Tonight is the first night that you will see sort of the drafted ordinance. There will then be time for you to ask questions of the folks that have drafted this ordinance. They have utilized some standard language from the state ordinances and those sorts of things. So that will come in front of you. You will have time to ask them questions, mull that over. Then it will come back in front of you at a subsequent meeting for action at some point. Then you will make a recommendation to City Council to bring that ordinance forward and that process forward. From our work with them, our communication to the team drafting this ordinance was that it be a public process, clear and transparent, so that folks within the city of Hibbing have some ownership and ability to engage on this. So I believe we have the folks here. Are they able to hear us? Okay, Todd, we can't hear you. We do have Todd Guerrero and Colette Brashears from Kutak Rock with us.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We can, Todd.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Todd Guerrero here. I'm a partner with the law firm of Kutak Rock. We have a office. It's a national law firm with about 600 lawyers, but we have a smaller office in Minneapolis, about 25 lawyers. And I chair our group's energy practice. And with me on the call is my colleague and associate of the firm, Colette Brashears. And let me stop there and see if there's any initial questions, and then maybe, Betsy, thank you for that introduction. I can sort of provide a little bit more context for the chair and the commission.
Any questions as we get started, or? Okay. Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, good. So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, what you have, as Betsy had indicated, is a draft ordinance that would allow ultimately the city council to approve essentially large energy projects that may ultimately come before or want to seek to be cited within the corporate boundaries of the city of Hibbing. Taking a step back, under state law, most large energy projects, including large transmission line projects, have to get authorized by the State Public Utilities Commission in St. Paul, and there's a fairly well-defined process in place for those particular projects, depending on whether it's a power plant, whether it's a transmission line, or a combination of each. And several years ago, probably closer to about 15 years ago, there was a change in state law that allowed certain projects, energy projects, including certain transmission line projects, could elect to go through what they called the local governmental route. And essentially, the state law was changed so that certain, typically smaller, but yet pretty significantly sized energy projects could seek approval from local governmental unit having jurisdiction and not have to go through the Public Utilities Commission, which can be a very long, drawn-out process, subject to litigation, controversial, as you probably know. Large energy projects often come with controversy, particularly on transmission lines that ultimately have the right of condemnation, and large power plants often can be controversial. And so to avoid that process, or to avoid that process as much as possible, the legislature gave certain projects the opportunity to go through local governments for approval. And so what we've done with Greg and Betsy is come up with a draft, simplified draft ordinance that would allow proponents of transmission and power plant projects to come through the city to seek approval and be reviewed by the Planning Commission first, subject to criteria that's set forth in the draft ordinance, and the Planning Commission would then make a recommendation as to whether or not that particular project met your satisfaction and met the criteria that's set forth in the ordinance. And then ultimately, if it did go up to the commission for approval, up to the city council for approval, the city council would presumably adopt the Planning Commission's recommendations and proposed findings of fact approving that project. And so one of the, as you may know, there's a current project that Public Utilities Commission, Hibbing Public Utilities Commission, is considering, the Southern Interconnect project, as Betsy had alluded to. And this project, or that project, would be subject, presuming that the Planning Commission makes a recommendation and ultimately this ordinance gets adopted, that project would be subject to that process outlined in the draft ordinance. I can go through the draft ordinance. If you have not read it yet, maybe we come back at another time after you've had a chance to read it and answer any questions, but I'm happy to sort of step through it and provide a high-level review for you if that would be helpful.
It's your guys' pleasure. You want to review all of it now, or do you want some time to go through it all?
Did anybody get a chance to review it when I emailed it at all, or? So it's up to you guys then, depending on how much time you have to go through it or not.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you just do a quick, high-level overview of it, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, so a 5-minute summary is probably not a bad option here. But essentially, it's we modeled it after the Public Utilities Commission rules for when Minnesota Power or an Xcel Energy or Great River Energy were to put a proposed project in front of the Public Utilities Commission. They have their own sets of regulations that they would have to step through. We reviewed that. We looked at some other cities that other cities might have, and we sort of kept it as simple as, we simplified it because we didn't think we needed all of the stuff that the Minnesota Public Utility Commission needed. And so it starts out with just a purpose and authority, and it references the law that I had mentioned earlier, and that's the state law that allows for this local governmental review option. That's 216 I-08. And then it just gets into like your sort of traditional ordinance would. It's a law, obviously. And so we want to be clear about that. And so we've got some definitions in the law, talk about what projects are eligible, what projects are not. In the case of the Southern Interconnect project, that is a large, 115 kV transmission line. I think it's a little over 3 miles, so it's not insignificant. And that would fall within the jurisdiction of this particular ordinance. There is a process in the rule or the proposed draft for the Planning Commission to conduct environmental assessment of the proposed project. You probably are familiar with your responsibilities to perform environmental assessments on other kinds of projects. There was a resolution adopted by the City Council back in July of last year, I believe, that authorized the Planning Commission to conduct an environmental assessment of this particular project. I'm not certain of the status of that environmental assessment. I assume you've undertaken that or are in the midst of undertaking that. But that process would fit within this ordinance as well. And then it sort of just talks about the steps through the process. They've got to come to you, the city, for an application. The city's going to, city clerk, city council, those details need to be worked out. Some of the minutia, they'll kick it down to the Planning Commission. The commission will then undertake its review in accordance with the draft application and the contents and the criteria. And if you look at, Betsy, do the members have a copy of the draft
Yes,
in
we
front of
do.
them?
Yep.
Yes, they do.
So if you look at, subdivision 5, for instance, the application would have to include certain information about the project so that you would have good information about it. You'd be able to touch it and feel it and get an understanding of it. And that would be required so that the applicant itself would know what target it's shooting at and what information the commission and the city council will ultimately need. Talks about why they chose in the case of a transmission line, why they chose a particular route. Is a case of a power plant, why they chose a particular site versus other possible sites within the city. There's environmental information that, of course, would be necessary, any effect that the project may have on the surrounding resources, including air and water quality, any effect it may have on cultural resources, artifacts, health and safety, if it's going to have any effect on your other parts of your economy there in the city, and then just some other general information that you would need in order to make a sound decision based on your understanding of the project. Let me emphasize as well that this is just a draft, and you guys are obviously can edit it any way you want. It's going to be your tool, not ours. These are just recommendations of ours based on having done this for many, many years. But ultimately, this is something that you would use, and so you would want to be comfortable with it and change it in whatever way made sense. And then there's some cost obligations so that the city and the planning commission get reimbursed for its time. Again, that's decisions for you all to make. And then skip down all the way to subdivision 9. We've proposed that there are factors for you to base your decision on and whether or not you would make a recommendation for approval or denial to the city council for its decision. These are big projects, they're expensive projects, they can be very controversial, they can bring out people's heated interest in many instances, as you're probably aware, and as you've probably seen in other projects in your experience as planning commissioner members. And so these are types of issues, types of criteria that anybody in your position would want to consider, at least in my opinion, in your chair, when you make decisions about whether this project is ultimately consistent with the city's goals and consistent with the resident public interest. And so it's a list of criteria, again, subject to your input and deletions or additions. And then ultimately, because you would need to make, or ultimately you'd want to make a decision that's sound, that's based on the facts, you'd make a recommendation based on findings of fact that the Planning Commission made in its review of the application, and then send that recommendation and proposed findings of fact up to the City Council for its reasoned decision-making. And that's essentially it. It's pretty straightforward, but it provides a framework for you all to make a decision in a rational, non-arbitrary way, which is ultimately what obviously we would want at the end of the day, so that it's not subject to reversal in any sort of court case or appeal. And so let me stop there, and I guess I'll say one last thing. When they adopted the law 15 years ago or so, there's a little provision in the law that basically said, well, we can kick these things over to the city council or local governmental unit and take it away from the Public Utilities Commission in St. Paul, but there has to be there's a little provision in the law that says local governmental units having jurisdiction, and the having jurisdiction has been interpreted to mean that if you're going to go away from the Public Utilities Commission in St. Paul and have these projects reviewed locally, the local unit of government, in this case the city government, city council, actually has to have an ordinance in place that would provide for a rational review of that application. And so what this ordinance does, in addition to giving you a framework and a toolbox and a toolkit to make decisions on, satisfies that provision in the statute that would otherwise give folks or opponents to these kinds of projects an opportunity to contest them legally. So we've wanted to make sure that we've satisfied that that legal requirement as well. So let me stop there, see if there's questions, and try to do our best to answer them.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions right now?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Okay.
As it relates to large energy infrastructure projects, and in looking at subdivision 2, part 3, is this proposed list different at all from the parent language, if you will, that this is recited from or drafted from? Does it encompass
pared
most
down.
examples
Pared
of large
down.
projects?
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, it's pared down from the list that the Public Utilities Commission would otherwise have jurisdiction over,
Okay.
but it captures the most likely projects. And so 3C, as in company, high voltage transmission lines with capacity between 100 and 200 kilovolts. That would, for instance, capture the Southern Interconnect project, or you'd have jurisdiction over that as a result of 3C being an eligible project. But again, this list is a draft, and it's subject to your additions and deletions.
Thank you.
One question. Hibbing Public Utilities has a feed from Northern Natural for its natural gas distribution system.
Mm-hmm.
And Northern is the transmission company that provides us, and the only one, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Would this ordinance then include a possible spur from another transmission for a natural gas company? Or is that not in the mix in this one, if that were to be considered in the future?
It's a good question. Currently, this draft does not include interstate transmission lines like Northern Natural. That's an interstate pipeline,
Right.
which is subject to the Federal Power Act, which is subject to FERC jurisdiction. So the city, and even the state, quite frankly, doesn't have siting authority, routing authority over interstate natural gas pipelines, because it's considered a federal, subject to federal jurisdiction. And so we could take a look at whether or not the city was interested in pulling in local distribution gas lines, the LDCs, but not the interstate pipelines. Does that make sense? I know it's a little confusing, can be.
Yeah, I'm kind of halfway there with you. To further that question, if we did get an intrastate company that came in and had a feed in our state, are they still considered intrastate and we can't take a spur off that? Is that where you're going with this?
No, you can certainly take spurs off of federal interstate pipelines, for sure, and those spurs could then become something other than interstate pipelines. They become something that would be called intrastate, subject to state regulation. And we could take a look at whether or not the city, if there was a spur coming off Northern Natural's interstate pipeline, whether or not we could take jurisdiction of that, the city could take jurisdiction of that for routing purposes. What I was saying is that if Northern Natural, for instance, wanted to come and build out some of their additional facilities through the city of Hibbing, we would not be able to, the city would not be able to have routing authority over Northern Natural, because that would be subject to federal law, not local law. Does that make sense?
So in effect, then, we could evolve this to include a natural gas intrastate pipeline company to allow us to gain a spur off that in the future. Is that right?
Well, there's two things there I think you're talking about. One is whether or not you have the authority to negotiate for a spur, and, which I think you do. And then the second question is, where's that spur going to be located? And where's it going to be routed? And so the routing question is really what this particular draft ordinance is intended to address, not whether or not you're entitled to take a spur off the interstate pipeline. But we can take a look, we could take a look at both of those issues if you wanted to, but, or if Greg and Betsy wanted us to, but this draft ordinance is really just intended to address the siting or the routing of particular energy facilities, not whether or not you have the right to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm not looking for the rights to do it, I'm just looking for if we can evolve this to include a possibility of getting a spur off of an interstate company of natural gas in the future. Would it behoove us to put that in there now while we're planning and working this through for MISO and the electric transmission?
Yes, I think it would. And so I would want to just confirm that the original allocation of from state to local jurisdiction includes the opportunities to do spurs, gas spurs within the local authority, or whether that needs to be continued to be maintained at a state level. But yes, for sure, while we're drafting or preparing an ordinance, we should put everything in, including the kitchen sink, as much as possible, so that we're not having to sort of do individual projects on a one-off basis.
So I, for one, would like to see that looked at in, down the road in a further setting here.
Yeah, we could do that. And I would agree that, let's take a look at gas as well, since it's obviously an important component of the overall energy infrastructure.
Thank you.
So, sure.
Pat?
So we do not have, an actual application for looking at transmission lines. And then, so do we need to come up with one that lists all these items, that are in the ordinance, I take it? Or is there an actual application?
Yeah, the way I would recommend that, Mr. Commissioner, is, have the applicant make the application. I don't think you need a form application because as it's currently constituted, the draft ordinance states what information the applicant needs to include in its application. And to the extent that that information is not in the ordinance, then the city or the planning commission would have the right to ask for that information before it began acting on the application. So I don't think...
So use our regular public hearing application.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I do think, Pat, to your point, you want to have the entity who is applying for said transmission line to give you some notification date as to when they consider it submitted, correct? Because then that starts some of the process, and then we can kind of go back and forth if they haven't supplied all of the information, et cetera. But otherwise, you and the applicant both have a date that you agree that you have received the information. And that's what your application right now does for you. Otherwise, if it comes in piecemeal, you don't have a date that you can say, well, that the application has been received. So I think you're
An
right.
actual
I think,
application through our office.
Yeah.
We have application, everything comes
Correct.
through our office for
Yeah.
land use, so we could make just a simple application like for our public hearing. And
Correct.
then all the information that's in the ordinance, they would supply, correct. Nobody here is an expert on evaluating land, water, air resources, so I think the city is gonna have to hire a consultant that specializes in environmental to review. None of us are gonna know that they met the conditions of, environmental impact. And that is part of the ordinance, that it needs to be reviewed, there are costs. So, I deal with wetlands a lot, and I deal with 3 other entities that are specialize in it. And the city makes the decision, but with their input. So I'm thinking that's the way this would go.
Correct. Mr. Chair, if I may, Pat is absolutely correct. He needs a juncture to say, okay, I have what I need, I can kick that over, right? And then also the ordinance does provide for recouping those costs so that the city isn't, paying those expenses on behalf of an entity who's making an application and then they withdraw it and there's no, recourse or benefit back to the taxpayer, so.
Okay. Anything else? This time? Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Be in touch. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, on that, if I may, once, take it home, mull it over. If you have any additional questions, please get them to Tina. We'll send them off to Todd and Colette. They'll review. If you have anything else that you want adjusted, we will double check if that adding in the natural gas, transmission will affect the fee that we've currently negotiated to work on the energy side of this with the consultant and get back to you on that so that you have that information and we can make the potential adjustment as needed. And then this will be back in front of you for consideration, action, and then forwarding to council. Was it March, Tina? Was that your next?
I think so.
Or were we going to do the 3rd Monday in February?
The 3rd Monday is President's Day.
Okay, so it was March then, that's why that's sticking in my head. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions from city staff as we kind of navigate this forward for you? Not at this time. Thank you. All right, I had a couple other updates if you were open to that before you adjourn.
Okay.
Nothing else from, okay. All right, so one of the other projects that Pat and Tina's office and my office have been collaborating on has been the land use plan update or the chapter update for the comprehensive plan. You'll recall that that was written in 2018 and the land use plan was done at the same time, and it's come time for an update. Pat and Tina have had some requests in for rezoning and things. Was it in 2023 maybe we did a moratorium on zoning because one of the projects was in a buffer zone and we wanted to study that to see how that would work. And then when the moratorium expired, we undertook a land use plan update. They have been in front of you and presented. There has been an open house for public engagement. And now, I believe just today, we got the future land use plan maps. So Pat and Tina, myself, we got to regroup and look them over, make sure that the input that staff gave was taken into consideration by our consultant, HKGI. And then that too will come back in front of you for review, approval, comment, revision, and then forwarding on to City Council to be adopted into the comprehensive plan and update that one chapter. Any questions on that at this time? So that will probably be in front of you at the same March meeting as well, if we can organize that. And we will have, that gives us a month to review staff internally. I think we'll probably be okay on that. And then get that out to you as long as we don't see any, need for draft changes. It'll come out to you in your regular packet 3 weeks before your meeting as standard, because that has been submitted to us already. All right, and then that goes to city council for their blessing, insert into the comprehensive plan, and then we're off and running with that one. We do have a redevelopment project at the Nortec buildings that the city put out a request for redevelopment. That land use plan is guiding how that property can be used in the future, so that's something that we're hoping to get done in advance of awarding that redevelopment project. I alluded very quickly to the 400 block. The demolition project is underway as of December. There is universal waste mitigation that's taking place, and then Pat has been working with the consultant on the asbestos mitigation, and they filed all of their permits, was it at the beginning of January?
Door?
Yes,
Yep. Mid-January?
okay. So that project is well underway. They will be setting up for the actual demolition. You know, all of this pre-work seems to take forever, right? And then the demolition is done and over. But they will be setting up for the fencing, et cetera, around that block and changing the traffic patterns, blocking off that alley, what have you, in March. Those updates go to the EDA every first Tuesday of the month, and they're also posted to the project page. So if you're tracking that project fairly closely, that 400 block project is on the city's website, and those updates go to that project page. There will be a couple of things probably coming your way, one of which will be a review of our parking ordinance. We've been working with TC2, which is doing a traffic and parking study in our downtown district. They're coming back with some best practices that say that maybe for a one-bedroom or a studio apartment, you don't need 2 parking spots per each dwelling unit. Right now, our ordinance does say something like that. So any changes that they want to make to any of those pieces will all come in front of you for public hearing and requests for variance or those sorts of things, which is why it's important that I keep you guys updated on that project. Same thing with the Heritage Preservation Commission. That group will have to overlook any of the changes as that building is constructed and what they plan to use for design elements to make sure that it is in keeping with what the Heritage Preservation Commission and what this body approves before they go to the ETA and get approved as well. Any questions on that project? Okay, you know that one's been in the works for several years, so it's exciting to see that start to take some next steps. And then finally, the Jefferson School update. We have been working on that one since the beginning of 2025, taken several developers past there to see if they could redevelop the school as it sits. We did come in front of this body a while back, get that rezoned for housing. The EDA will be having a presentation at their meeting in March, so that would be March 3rd, to review and have a discussion about what they think a highest and best use for that particular land for housing would be. So if you're interested, I encourage you to watch that meeting because those are all on our HPAT system, sent out on their various channels. So if you are so interested in getting a look at how the EDA's conversation goes about what highest and best use looks like for that particular property for housing, that would be the first step. Then they're going to issue an RFP for a development on that site to see if we can't get somebody to step forward and say, here's how I'd like to develop that site in keeping with the EDA's vision for highest and best use. So I had, when we talked about that in the, where we requested the change in zoning, I indicated to the Planning Commission body at that time that we would be coming back in front of you with regular updates and also other engagement points. And so hence the update tonight and allowing you to know what the next engagement point will be as we start to move that forward. Any comments or questions on that particular piece?
Thank you.
Excellent. Yep, that's all I have for tonight. I really appreciate you allowing me to come and give you a couple of updates.
Thank you.
Shipping containers is being brought up again. We haven't brought anything to our TEP panel or that, but we have the old draft ordinance, and the city attorney had with our input, has revised that. We will be bringing it to the, like, council workshop, because I don't know how the council feels about shipping containers, for one. There's so many items. Every zone, you know, we have 9 different zones in the city of Hibbing. Which ones should have them? How many? Where should they be located? All those items. Same as in the past, the same questions would come up. So that will be coming, I think, to our tech panel though first, and then for discussion with the planning commission, but not for adoption until we have, you know, discussion on it.
It just seemed like last time it went through all of those steps and then fizzled out at council, so we'll get their opinion before we go through all those other steps.
Sounds good. Any other open discussion? Seeing none, we'll move for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.